Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Currott Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1991 movie titled The Fisher King. Now, The Fisher King is a comedy drama that runs for 2 hours and 17 minutes long. It is directed by Terry Gilliam, the guy who brought us the Monty Python movies, as well as some other bizarre fantasy type movies in the past, like Brazil and amongst others. It is produced by Deborah Hill and Linda Obst. The script was written by Oscar-nominated writer Richard LaGravenese. The score was done by George Fenton, the cinematography by Roger Pratt, and the editing by Leslie Walker. And it stars Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Academy Award-winning actress Mercedes Ruehl, who took home the Best Supporting Actress, Amanda Plummer, Michael Jeter, David Hyde Pierce, Harry Shearer, Kathy Najimy, and musician Tom Waits. In 1985, writer-director Terry Gilliam gave us the film Brazil, the story of a humble civic servant caught in a web of a dystopian society. The enigmatic fantasies manifested in the mind of our protagonist gives us a hint of hope in an otherwise hopeless dimension. 6 years later, Gilliam directs The Fisher King, which also looks into the eyes of a deranged man who's lost hope in this world, oblivious to the world surrounding him. Of course, as a protocol in society, if anyone who lives in a fantasy dream world and is not afraid to speak out of it, you will easily be dismissed as a delusional lunatic. But every once in a while, some human beings will embrace that person's delusions, even if it is to cover up one's own faults. So is the case of Jack Lucas, played by Jeff Bridges. He is that man. We first meet Jack as a cynical, self-absorbed radio jockey who just couldn't give a shit about anyone or anything. His ego has climbed to epic proportions, as he truly represents what every other person walking this earth represents. He's just one of everyone else. He has his own desires and knows how to get them, and he never really has to go back on his steps or his words. But eventually the lesson here is that even the largest of egos can abound to become deflated. His world comes crashing down when he lends his voice to a caller, which leads to a violent murder frenzy. 3 years later, Jack has now lost his job and is now demoted to working at a video store run by his girlfriend, Ann Napolitano, played by Mercedes Ruehl. And during that time, he spends most of his time inebriated and feeling that his life is not worth living, as he becomes to contemplate on suicide. But when, out of a sudden burst of irony, he is rescued by a homeless guy who only goes by the name Parry, played by Robin Williams, from a group of thugs who were practically beating the crap out of Jack. So Robin Williams and his other band of merry men, I guess, who are also some other homeless vagrants, take down these two punks and starts to befriend Jack. Now, Parry derived from the character Parsifal in the King Arthur's time. He was a former teacher at Hunter College in the field of medieval studies. Now all of a sudden he's become a homeless guy, and in his world he is a knight in search of the Holy Grail, and this is where he asks Jack to help him in his quest. Now, at first, Jack refuses to have anything to do with this nutty man, but after going through some research to discover that, like him, Perry has lost faith in himself and has sunk into an even sadder path than him. In addition to that, he feels that by committing a selfless act, he can help rectify the problems he's trying to overcome. Now, this story could be about Jack's ego trying to better himself, but Perry's whims are very unsettling at times, and his erratic behavior can drive even the most sanest person insane. But Jack, however, makes strides in actually helping this man, rather than just playing along with this loony. Now, many fans can dismiss Perry as this crazy street bum, much like Jack to the average viewer, which can just look at him as an egocentric jerk. But both characters embody a character study with plenty of layers within their psyche. Perry has created this fantasy where he's a knight on a quest, and it's used as an escape to hide from the cruel world that has been brought onto him. But sometimes, eventually, that cruel world does come back to him in the manifestation of an ominous red knight that only he could see and that nobody else could. And of course, every time he sees the red knight, he breaks into an outburst, even if it's in public. And sometimes he may do things in public that might be embarrassing for others to do. But like I said, this guy's in his own world. He has a beat to a different drum. And he also imposes erratic behavior in public, but he doesn't really know that he's actually doing it. I mean, the guy had lost it. He hasn't been the same since his wife's death 3 years ago, which kind of links to Jack's radio program, which led to a madman killing 7 people and then turning his life on himself. One of those 7 people that got killed was Perry's wife. Of course, Perry, that's not even his real name. His real name actually is Dr. Henry Sagan. So therefore, this Red Knight is a connection to the unfaithful event that happened 3 years ago. The night when Perry's wife dies. And when Perry's wife died, this poor man's sanity went with it too. And the only way to get it back is for Jack to look for this Holy Grail located in the outskirts in New York City. And the New York City depicted in this film is practically like what you would expect in 80s, 90s New York City, where it was kind of trashy, a lot of criminals, parasites, and it was not particularly like one of the safest places to go. I mean, even still to this day, New York City is not exactly a place you would want to walk around alone, or probably not necessarily the safest place to run a family, but it has kind of toned down a little bit. Not a lot, but at least it has made strides over the years. But back in the 1990s, New York City could have easily been the threshold of hell. And I'm not taking any jabs to anybody who comes from New York City. I don't want you to take this offensively. I mean, when we think about it, no place is safe. No place is safe at all. So if I offended anybody who comes from New York City, I sincerely apologize. But when you think about it, isn't stories and fantasies are what intended for? You know, Perry's imagination just seems to spread out probably better than everyone else's. I mean, this guy may be a homeless individual, but he's anything but stupid. He seems to be quite knowledgeable, especially in the realms of medieval studies, and he tells the story of the Fisher King and seems to have a great general knowledge in that. I mean, after all, you know, he was a professor in medieval studies. So this guy wasn't just some uneducated bum who is living off and mooching off of people's finances. I mean, he wasn't always like this. The guy was a genius, but he just has not been the same since his wife died. I mean, listen, the world is a cruel place, and by creating characters and images, we all have to find ways to distract ourselves once in a while. And that's what Parry is doing. His imagination is his only escape. The poor man's been through a lot and has not recovered. Jack has not recovered from his from his radio program where the caller took his advice and went on a frenzy. And Jack's inner guilt has not fully recovered either. And he'll probably will have to live with this guilty conscience to the day he dies. And that all the regrets could never be fully expunged. But Jack and Parry do have two things in common. They must find ways to move on from the past and try to help build themselves in the present and the future. Parry, of course, is eyeing on the woman of his dreams, somebody by the name of Lydia Sinclair, played by Amada Plummer. And he has had an attraction to her for a long time, but was never able to express his love for her. Meanwhile, Jack feels that by helping Parry out in his quest for the Holy Grail and to try to get him to fall in love with this socially awkward, eternally inept Lydia, this could probably help bring him back to where he was famous for. Maybe to bring him back into the realm of radio. And maybe this time have a different perspective on human life, and to actually now try to learn to think before he talks. And we all find ways to distract ourselves once in a while. Does that make any of us crazy? If so, then so be it. When you think about the things we suffer from, it could actually reflect in our storytelling abilities. Jack definitely has no clue what Parry is talking about, who this Red Knight he keeps mentioning. But Jack doesn't realize that this quest is also a reflection of what he's trying to accomplish, trying to turn two negatives, which are Jack and Parry's current states, into something positive. And Jack sees something he's never seen before in his life, a silver dawning of a new person, and that it's never too late to change your ways. Just doing a world of good isn't the way to go about this. It's more than that. It's a commitment to eternally promise that you will change your ways and never forget those who helped you along the way. And that is exactly what Jack understands as the film progresses. And to help another downtrodden individual is the way to go. So for that we can actually relate to Jack, because we all have a little Jack in all of us. Sure, we as humans can be as selfish as we want to, but then there are other times when we could commit selfless acts if when given the opportunity or commitment to do good things. Jack isn't just annoyed by Parry's behavioral patterns, he's upset as to why Parry chose him on his quest, let alone save him from self-destruction, while offering the meager cash in his possession. Love doesn't come from what's inside your wallet, but what's inside your heart. And if Jack were to understand this, then maybe he could find reasons to love himself and put a disclosure to the error he committed years ago. The Fisher King is a subliminal metaphoric film that truly powerfully illustrates how one selfless act could seal the gaps from one's troubled past in hopes to turn one's life around. If I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I definitely give it a 9. It's a great movie. It definitely has a lot of feel good, and it also has a great lesson to be learned about life itself. I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, please feel to do so. If you want to leave a comment, you may. Remember, be kind, be courteous, and I will be back again with another review. So until then, this is Eric Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.